So welcome back to the second interview. The second stakeholder on the problem of drug abuse, addiction and stigma that we're talking to is a Zambian artist called Ras Kinky. Welcome to the interview, Ras Kinky.
Thank you very much.
So, off the top,
Yeah.
you practice Rastafarianism.
Yes.
And the Zambian culture, Zambian society has this misconception about Rastafarianism.
Yeah.
Could you just give us a background to what Rastafarianism is exactly?
Well, Rastafarianism is it's an African culture, as we the Rastas call it. It's something that came from the slaves in Jamaica. Okay, as we remember, in the days of slavery, our brothers were taken from here to the Caribbeans. So over there in Jamaica, you've got a man called Marcus Garvey, who was a revolutionary. So this revolutionary was talking about a king being crowned in Africa. So basically, when the slaves there realized that we Africans have got a king who can actually be crowned, we've got someone who's great as a king in our lineage, they realized that this is the man that we should praise. And we've always had this conception of a man-God. We've always had this conception of God is man, and man is God. So when Haile Selassie was crowned, who's the king of Ethiopia, the slaves in Jamaica started looking to Africa, and they started regarding Haile Selassie as God, as the Almighty, because this is the man that sat on the throne of King David. They say that he comes from the lineage of King David and King Solomon through Queen Sheba. So Queen Sheba laid with King Solomon, and then they gave birth to Menelik, King Menelik, who's Haile Selassie's grandfather, great-grandfather. So yeah, that's how come the whole Rastafari thing started. It actually comes from the roots of slavery, where our brothers realized that there's a king that has been crowned through prophecies and all these things. And then afterwards, yeah, it started spreading, with the music also. The artists like Bob Marley started spreading the teachings of Rastafari. And it's reached the whole world. Now we have more numbers. So it's basically something that comes from the roots of an African, Yeah.
Thank you for that background. So, talking about Rastafarianism, it's inevitable for people to connect Rastafarianism to marijuana or ganja.
Yeah.
So, can you just give us a perspective? What's the connection or relationship between Rastafarianism and the consumption or taking of marijuana, or ganja, as they call it?
Well, first of all, being a Rasta doesn't mean it's mandatory to take marijuana, and not every Rastaman takes marijuana. And there's a lot of misconception. Having dreadlocks also doesn't mean you're a Rastaman.
Okay,
so
you can be a Rasta without dreadlocks.
It's actually the same conception of Haile Selassie. That's as long as you know about Haile Selassie and where he comes from, and him being the king of kings sitting on the throne of King David. That's what Rastafari is actually about.
Okay.
So when it comes to marijuana, there's also a misconception about marijuana. You see, when you get to definitions, all right, this is my own opinion. When you get to definitions, marijuana is not a drug. It's a herb. Okay, it grows out of the ground, and it can be consumed right after it's ready, just from there. Drugs are manufactured. Drugs are manufactured in the laboratory. So there's misinformation also. I'm not saying it's something that's good for anybody to take. I mean, anything has its good and bad properties. Take, for example, water can be used to drown someone, and it can be used to save somebody as well. So I think it's much more of a misconception, the misunderstanding that people have about the herb itself. People are legalizing it now. Other countries are legalizing it now. So what it is they have to have better information about what this thing really is. What are its uses? Because if you've got entertainers talking about girls, money, weed, then there's young boys that are listening to these songs. And these are some songs that we even used to listen to. When I was young, I could hear songs like this. All I'm thinking of is, girls, money, and weed, girls, money, and weed. But if somebody's talking about weed meditation, weed artistic, weed musical, weed recreation, like I'm not saying it's not a good thing, or I'm not advocating for anybody to go and take it, but I'm saying these are the things that it can be used for also, So yeah, Marijuana is, Rasta doesn't regard marijuana as a drug. Rasta regards marijuana as a holy thing. This is something that...
as a herb, as a plant.
Exactly. It connects us to nature. It puts us in reality, in this world of lies that we're living in today.
Okay. You mentioned something important that I think you need to expand on a little bit more.
Okay.
You talked about how music can be used to propagate a negative message depending on the words being used in the music.
Yeah.
And I'll refer to rap music.
Exactly.
Where people talk about flashy cars, they talk about demeaning women,
Yeah.
they talk about taking drugs.
Yeah.
What's your perspective and advice to people on the power of music in terms of sending out a positive or negative message?
See, when it comes to that, it's actually a big topic. You know, a lot of people have their opinions on why people are taking drugs or why children are taking drugs. Of course, joblessness, peer pressure, and a lot of other things that have been mentioned over the years. But in my opinion, I think the entertainers play a huge role. What our children are listening to, what are they watching, what's the content in these things that they're watching, and when do they start listening to these things also. So, but usually they're starting at very young ages, okay, 7, 8 years old, and they're already listening to this trap music and all these things. So let's take, for example, if I've got a trap musician, and I'm a fan of this trap musician. And this trap musician talks about drugs, and he talks about taking these drugs. And he's big, he's got money, and he's got all these things, the flashy cars and the women like you just said. Yes, I'm going to want to emulate this guy. And if I've been listening to his music from the time I was maybe, let's say, 9, and it's been 10 years, and this is my top artist, then I just want to live like him, and I want to take these drugs, and and I want to experience what it is actually that he's talking about. So as Rasta, we talk about reality and we talk about truth. We also look at it from this perspective. Look, there's a system that runs the whole world. This is something that we know. It's not something to hide from. The world is run by one system, and this system, from what we've seen as Rasta, is it's good at keeping the poor, keeping the middle class in the middle class, and keeping the rich richer. So the rich can continue getting richer. So you've got a minority of people who are rich, and they can continue getting richer. Now, how do they do this? The youths. Okay, the youths are the ones that are targeted. So the entertainment system is supported by this same big system. It's a route of actually advertising the drugs, because those are the people that advertise these drugs. It's the musicians and the movies and whatever it is that we're watching. So at the end of the day, yeah, it's a huge thing. It's actually it's a huge process. It's coming from way back, and it's coming from deeper in the core. So if we're actually looking for the roots of why the youths are taking drugs, this is one thing that we need to look at. What are the youths listening to? And also our parents. The parents have to take a huge role in teaching the children culture and morals. Also, they need to be there all the time. Schools also need to have these cultural classes from as early as pre-class, so that the children can also know where they're coming from, know about who they are, so they don't just drift away anywhere. Because if they have culture and they're strong and they know where they're coming from, they know what they're doing. Yeah, I'm not saying it's going to completely stop it, but it can cut it down by a percentage.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll put the spotlight on you,
yeah,
as an artist, as an individual.
Yeah.
What type of music do you produce? Is it positive music?
Yeah. Different
from the type of music you're describing?
Yes, I've been doing positive music. Of course, I'm not gonna lie and act like I'm not affected by everything that goes on in the system and the music industry. At some point in time, of course, I want to get a little bit commercial, and talk about these things. But basically, I'm a reggae artist, and I'm talking about truth and rights and all these things that are affecting our people. And yes, I'm not going to be talking about the usage of drugs or cocaine or whatever it is in my songs. I'm talking about real things, real stories, things that someone can learn from, and get mature from maybe.
Okay. So as a youth,
yeah,
there is this big drug problem that's affecting fellow youths.
Yeah.
what are the common drugs that you're aware of that youths are using currently?
The worst, the one that I think is the worst now, there's two of them. Okay, you've got something that they call codeine, benylin with codeine.
Yes.
Okay, and then you've got something they call PA or Valium.
Okay.
Okay, now these are things that they're destroying our youth, and also it's because of misinformation. Also, the youths don't even know what these things are. You know, because if we can have there's very few meetings we have in our schools. Like I remember in school, we would have the drug department of the government come to talk to us, but that was only once in a while. If we can have this, that's why I'm saying the schools need to pay attention also to what the children are hearing and learning. They need to have these classes regular. Let them have these classes from when they are young, so that they can tell them what these things are. Most people don't even know what codeine is. They just take it because they think it's a cough syrup. But this is a derivative of morphine, which is a derivative of heroin. So you're taking heroin. That's what you're doing.
You're using a big word, derivative.
Yeah.
What's a derivative?
It's let me give a simple explanation. It's like this is where it's coming from.
Okay.
Okay. So we've got heroin. Morphine is coming from heroin, and codeine is coming from morphine.
Okay.
So codeine is like a grandchild to heroin.
Okay.
So people are taking heroin. The young kids are taking heroin, and you see this thing is sweet. Okay, it's very sweet. So like, yeah, it's sweet, and it doesn't get you so drunk like alcohol, and so you know, someone will be taking it, you know, all the time and not really know what they're actually doing. You know what I'm saying?
So what do you think the reason for this high consumption of drugs is? Especially the two you've mentioned, Valium and codeine, benylin with codeine. Why are the youths hooked on this? Why are they using it?
It gets back to the same thing, which is entertainment.
Entertainment.
Yes. It gets back to the same thing, which is entertainment. The youths have been listening to these songs for a long time. Okay, like I said, if I have a trap artist who's, you know, he's a UK trap artist, he's in the UK, and he talks about taking lean and smoking and doing what, and that's what I want to do. And that's what's there on social media also. And these are big factors. They are actually, according to me, those are the biggest factors, because before anything starts, before peer pressure starts, before joblessness starts, listening to these things. So I think that's, you know, that's the biggest cause.
So when you talk about entertainment, we're actually talking about what's referred to as the hip-hop culture.
Exactly.
That's the biggest issue, right?
Yeah, it's the hip-hop culture. R&B culture a little bit also started falling into that as well, but mostly it's the hip-hop culture.
Okay.
The hip-hop culture is the one that's really confusing the youths, because these are the people that talk about these things, and it's like they're funded to do these things.
Okay.
When you look at it properly, it looks like there's somewhere where they're getting money to do this thing. Where are you making this kind of money? When you really analyze it, you find that these people don't have any money. They're coming from the ghetto, they're coming from the slums. But within a snap of a finger, he's rich and he's got all this money, and he's talking about the drugs, and he's talking about... Yes, he's going to talk about that, because then it makes more of the youths
consume the
exactly
same drug. And the more they consume, the more funding goes into the drugs.
That's the way it is. And the more youths are consuming that, the more you're keeping them in an area, because there's only two things the drug is. There's only two ways out with the drug. Either you go to jail or you die. I'm going to give one example on this drug addicts. You know, it's a gruesome example, but maybe someone can listen to it. You know, I'll give you an example of a wolf. Okay, a wolf is an animal that's known to love blood a lot. So people are known to kill a wolf by sticking out a knife in the woods, a blade in the woods, and putting blood on it. So the wolf is going to lick the blood off the blade till it cuts its tongue and starts to lick its own blood. It will lick its own blood till it dies. That's an example of what a drug actually is. You know? Yeah. So
powerful example you've given. So lastly, I'll give you an opportunity to address the young people and youths out there. What advice would you give them in connection to the drug problem that we're currently facing as a society?
Well, me as a Rasta man, I'm going to tell the youths to know themselves first of all. You know, like I've been talking about culture. Know who you are, know where you come from. This makes you strong as a human being. your decision making is more profound if you know where you're coming from, and then know what you're listening to also. Don't just, the information system in the world right now is really, really controlled, and it's controlled in such a way that it's meant to confuse the youth. So yes, know who you are, know your culture, know your history, and know things that are happening around you, the current affairs. Then, you know, maybe that's a start, you know. Yeah.
Raskinki, thank you so much for being with us and being part of the interview.
Thank you very much.
So that was us chatting to Raskinki on the issue of drug abuse, addiction and stigma. Join us as we interact with other stakeholders.